this is Terry Allen, and this is Real Progress News. I am broadcasting from Los Angeles. It's March 22nd, 2023. And once again, I have a great guest, Gerald Pechinuk from the LaRouche organization. And we have some very interesting, exciting things to talk about tonight. So let's get started. Gerald, I think everybody knows who you are now. So explain to me what you were talking about before we went online here.
Well,
About how interesting of a time we're in.
Yeah, these are not ordinary times. Actually, that's the title of a book written about the year 1940, about Franklin Roosevelt running for his third term for president. He was elected in 32, 36. And the question was he going to run in 1940? And the reason it was a question is because there was no constitutional amendment that was passed later, which limited the president to 2 terms.
Yes,
so
yeah.
It was not automatically, yes, he's going to run. There was a lot of opposition. No one ever did it. Never been done before. You shouldn't do it. Or would he run anyway, even though it was the first time? And so he made the decision, because obviously we had just been in a depression, banking collapse, war starting, danger of world war, huh?
Mhm.
And so he made the decision to run. And probably if he hadn't, you and I wouldn't be here having this discussion tonight, because of the extraordinary leadership of taking a nation out of a depression, a collapse, tens and hundreds of thousands of people standing on bread lines, to get their daily bread.
Yeah, I've seen some of the photos. It's amazing. So really quick, so everybody was limited to 2 terms as just kind of a thing that people did, since there wasn't anything in the Constitution about it.
Right. There was an amendment passed after Roosevelt limiting to 2 terms, but he got elected for that third term in 1940, and then he was reelected in 1944. And I think that's a good place to start, because when he was reelected in 1944, they had switched through a operation against Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace was the vice president in the third term. And since Roosevelt was getting worn out and sick during the war, World War II, and eventually died on April 12th, 1945, the person who got elected as vice president in 1944 was thought of as potentially becoming president. And if it had been Henry Wallace, there never would have been a Cold War with our wartime ally, the Soviet Union, and China, and a lot of other countries who had collaborated with Franklin Roosevelt, because Franklin Roosevelt was anti-imperial and anti-colonial. That was his big fight, unbeknownst to many people, even today. Very few people know that Franklin Roosevelt had huge fights with Winston Churchill on the question of, okay, we got to defeat Hitler, yes, but we're not going to defeat Hitler for the purpose of restoring British colonialism after the war, Dutch colonialism, Portuguese colonialism. That was the difference between Harry Truman, who brought Churchill into Fulton, Missouri, right early in 1946.
That's where the Iron Curtain speech. Yeah, I
Exactly.
read the book As He Saw It by Elliot Roosevelt, and that's where he was talking about how they were sitting there, and Churchill was saying something, and Roosevelt said, um, he said, Winston, we're not in this war to save the British Empire. In fact, the British Empire is finished when the war is over. And he said that Winston Churchill's face got really red. It looked like steam was coming out of his ears.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where I heard about it, and that's yeah, that
Yeah.
made a lot of sense.
Two things I think your listeners will be very interested in knowing, that fight between the British colonialists, typified by Winston Churchill, and the American system of the American Revolution, which was the American Revolution was the Italian Golden Renaissance. It was the best people of Europe that disagreed with the monarchy and the oligarchs. That's why they came and founded a new country. Okay, that's why we had the Declaration of Independence against the British Empire, the Constitution, to form a positive basis of cooperation with national banking to build the infrastructure, to build the Erie Canal, later to build the railroads, later with the Reconstruction finance of FDR, we built electrification. We electrified the farms. We formed land grant colleges to disseminate knowledge among the farmers. We built major water projects. We here, Los Angeles, I'm in the Bay Area. California is a miracle of technology, infrastructure, water, and so when the 2020 election rolled around, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, the globalists said, including the House of Lords, the British Empire said, we cannot allow a second Trump term. And they said Trump would do what Henry Wallace did. He would rebuild, he would work together with Russia, he would work together with the rest of the world. And if Biden got elected, and that's who they put their money on, Biden, he would be another Harry Truman. He would be Cold War. He would be confrontational. Okay? So that's why the issue is the same. I was reminded today that there was a time when in Trump's term, when he was in office in 2019, when there was an incident between Iran and the United States having to do with a U.S., I think it was some type of Navy ship or drone got knocked down by Iran. And the
I remember,
warmongers
yeah.
were jumping up and down. We're going to war in Iran. We're going to war against Iran. And Trump called all of his advisors in, and he said, how many casualties did we suffer from whatever Iran did, or whoever did it? How many, if we attacked Iran, how many people would die? And Trump was told 150 Iranians would die. And then he said, but no, there were no casualties. So I say no, we're not going to war with Iran. This was in 2019, I believe was the month of May. And the British ambassador in Washington went nuts. He went absolutely nuts, saying that Trump is, he's not fit to be president. He won't listen to his advisors. And this British ambassador was actually expelled from the United States because of his being caught. Ambassador's supposed to be pleasant and everything. And he was writing all sorts of shit, attacking Trump and participating in a coup against Trump. And he was sent packing. Huh?
Yeah,
So,
John Bolton, I remember he was going psycho too.
yep, yep,
Everybody wanted, I think we were within 10 minutes that the jets were on their way and he called them back.
yep, yep. Here it is. July 10th, British Ambassador Sir Kim Durock resigns. All right, after calling Trump inept. All right, dysfunctional because he wouldn't go to war. Huh?
Yeah.
So this is what we're dealing with today is the failure to rein in the deep state, the media, the cover-ups, election fraud, the failure to deal with that resulted in the war party taking over the United States government, the
Yeah.
British policy. And that's what we're seeing right now going two ways. One is, despite the fact the media lied its rear end off, and Russia, contrary to the media saying Ukraine is winning the war, Ukraine is winning the war, Ukraine is winning the war over and over and over again, it's clear they're not winning the war. They're getting decimated. They're getting destroyed.
Yeah.
And so when a peace agreement is proposed based on a ceasefire and negotiation, anyone who has the interests of Ukraine at heart, the people of Ukraine, as opposed to the British Empire and the lackeys of the British Empire, like the Azov battalions of Nazis in Ukraine, anyone would say, yes, let's have a ceasefire. But no, Ukraine, instead of going along, and this is China and Russia and other countries have proposed this, and Ukraine sent up a flare or a drone over Crimea in response to signal, no, we're not going to have a ceasefire. So, and then the anti-Trump globalists who populate the Biden administration that came in with the coup of 2020, they are saying we're going to keep arming Ukraine no matter what. Okay, so the war is going to continue, even though Ukraine has been decimated, even though a peace process has been proposed. These guys want to keep going with the war. And Trump just came out with a 10-point program to eliminate the deep state. That is exactly what he said. We have to eliminate the deep state.
That's exactly what we need. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those lunatics, I think it was Anthony Blinken and one of the other guys were talking about absolutely no ceasefire. This is crazy. We'll allow Russia to do whatever they want if we have peace. These people are psychopathic lunatics. I've
Right.
never seen anything like it. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
That's what I guess, talking to with Putin, right?
Exactly. So you have Trump's 10 points, and I'll just read a couple of them. Clean
Yes.
out the corrupt actors in the national security apparatus. Agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled. Establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. All right. And he goes on, ask Congress to monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they're not spying on our citizens, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just three of the points that Trump brought up. But so what's going on? All of a sudden, Trump is being brought up, New York charges, special counsel charges, Georgia charges. All of a sudden, for the first time in American history, for the first time, they're trying to prosecute a candidate who is running for president, former president, running again for 2024, and is leading in all the polls. He's ahead. He's way ahead. You know, like, for example, I was just at the Republican State Convention of California last weekend. We took a poll of delegates. 166 delegates participated in a Survey Monkey poll online. Trump, 74%, DeSantis, 15%. That was of California Republican Party delegates participating in the convention. That happened at CPAC about a month ago. The survey of the delegates, 62% for Trump, 20% for DeSantis. And it's happening in New Hampshire and other states. Trump is ahead by 30 or 40 points. So Trump running for office, leading in the polls, a former president, is being bludgeoned every day, night and day. He's going to jail, the Trump derangement syndrome. And then what happened today, here's a bombshell that just hit today. A letter from lawyers representing Michael Cohen, that's the person who supposedly...
That was the attorney, Trump's old attorney, yeah.
A letter from lawyers who represented him to the Federal Election Commission states, quote, Trump's former lawyer and star witness says that he wrote, I used my own personal funds, and neither the Trump organization or the Trump campaign was a party to the transaction, that's in question. And neither reimbursed Mr. Cohen for the payments directly or indirectly. So that's a letter from Cohen from Cohen's lawyer from 2018. So is Trump going to be indicted still? Who knows? These people.
Well, it was supposed to be today, and it got postponed because Cohen has been talking. They told him to shut up. He's been on TV, and he was found guilty of perjury.
Yeah.
And he's been disbarred, I think, as of yesterday. They said he's the worst possible witness you could ever have because he's a known liar, and he's really pissed off at Trump. That's why he wants to get him. And there's an attorney, Robert Govia. There's somebody at the Proud Boys trial that's been sending out the transcript, and it's freaking amazing. The FBI have destroyed documents. They were infiltrated. They just said today that it looks like they had an insider into the Proud Boys attorneys, and they were spying on them. And it's like everything got put on hold. So I don't know what's going to happen with all that. But yeah, he was talking about how Cohen, everything's gotten put on hold because something has happened. And I think they realize that this is not going to go anywhere and it's going to backfire on them. And so it may not even happen at this point.
Right.
That's what he was saying.
But now here's the interesting thing. That was all known, that this case was a wash.
Yeah.
But yet they pushed it anyway.
They're desperate.
They're desperate. That's the point I'm getting. Now, why are they desperate? And what is the implication of their desperation for us? For LaRouche PAC, for having Trump running for destroying the deep state. So I want to bring another factor into this, which is the factor of the collapse of Silvergate Bank, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, the collapse of Signature Bank. You notice a pattern here? They're going down.
Yep.
How many other banks are in a similar shape?
I
So,
think they read off a list of them. There's like 10 or more that are going
yeah,
belly
yeah,
up now.
the,
There's a bunch of
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. There's uh, at the end of last year, uh, some friends of ours who write a column called Wall Street on Parade, Russ and Pam Martins, they were looking at how many banks were getting um, like uh, like when you
Bailouts.
well, it's not a bailout. They were getting, money ahead of time.
Oh,
They were getting fronts or early injections of funds from the federal home loan banks. There's 11 of them around the country. And the 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 list of banks that were getting these uh, early early draws of funds is the list of the banks that are going bankrupt now. So that's why they were shoveling the money into them from the Federal Home Loan Bank Board, which is supposed to be there to help poor people get loans. And they were shoveling the money in to
out of
like
control.
to the Silverado Bank, which was one of the Sam Bankman crypto fraud banks. They
Yeah.
were they were funneling money into this Silicon Valley Bank, which when it went under, it was the second largest bankruptcy in US history, next to Washington Mutual, which went bankrupt in 2008. So so you have banks that are like a bunch of drunks leaning. How is this bank holding up? Well, they're leaning on the drunk next to them, who's being held up by the drunk next to him. So, all fall down pretty soon,
Yeah.
because at the same time today, the decision was taken by the Federal Reserve to raise the interest rates by another 0.25%. So they're pumping money now, it is said by Janet Yellen, that somehow the Fed and the FDIC have created another new bailout facility, that any amount of money that you have in a bank, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, they're going to make it good, penny by penny, dollar by dollar. They will bail out every single account, not just 250,000, which is the FDIC,
Yeah.
statutory limit. No matter what you got, we're going to bail you out. And then when Senator Lankford from Oklahoma questioned Yellen a few days ago, you mean you're going to bail out everyone in the Silicon Valley Bank no matter what? Yes. Well, what about people who got more than $250,000 here in a bank in Oklahoma? Let's say a business. Someone's got 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Will they be treated the same way as you're treating the depositors in Silicon Valley Bank who got more than 250,000 that you're going to bail out, make every dollar good? Will you do the same for the banks here? Answer: no. No, we're not. So Senator Lankford said, guess what? You're causing more banks to collapse, because I can tell you right now, as you and I are talking here, right now, money is being withdrawn from the banks in Oklahoma and presumably a lot of other places to
Yeah.
put in the banks that they have identified as, in this case, not too big to fail, too woke to fail. These are lunatic banks, let's call them.
Yeah.
So people are taking their money out of small, medium, banks. There's over 5,000 banks in the United States, taking money out. So there is going to be, because it's not even close. I can get you the statistics and you can post them, for people. How much money in the US banking system is unsecured. That is, it's not guaranteed in the FDIC up to 250,000. It's above 250,000. How much is unsecured versus how much is in the FDIC fund to bail out? So we're heading for a crash of the whole system. We're heading for war, continuous, never-ending war. So that's what, Lyndon LaRouche prepared us for, before he passed away, is a crisis where it's not just a little crisis. It's not just a big crisis. It's not a medium size. It's like super gigantic crises on all fronts simultaneously.
It's insanity. I just never thought I could see this going crazy. And the Republicans they've got to go after Biden now. They're getting all the bank records of all the criminality that was going on. I mean, needs to turn around fast. It's
Yeah,
there's so much on them.
That's the key. It needs to turn around fast. In a strategic conjunctural crisis, as opposed to a little bitty crisis, a medium or a large size, the trust people have in the institutions is gone. The Chinese use the phrase, the mandate of heaven. They've lost the mandate of heaven. What does that mean? It means they're open to a revolutionary change, not a
Band-Aid
on a cancer. And that's where LaRouche PAC working to educate the MAGA movement. Now, the difference between now and past times, you say, well, didn't they assassinate Kennedy? Didn't they shoot Reagan? Didn't they do 9/11? The answer is yes, they did all that. The same people that are doing it today. What's the difference? There's 50 or 60 or 70 million people who now know about the deep state. They know from the COVID mess, from the financial collapse, Federal Reserve mess, from the election fraud stuff, they know something is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, the January 6th, all those videos coming out. There you go. Because now we're seeing that this was not an insurrection. Absolutely was not. They've blown it way out of proportion to attack what they're created this new boogeyman, the new domestic terrorist. Anybody that has anything that says against the Democrats, that's the way the fascists do it. That's the way the third world, the dictators. It's amazing. Didn't the Mexican president was just saying something about the United States and all this garbage that we're doing, and how about Trump's being a political hit, and he said the United States has a lot of nerve pointing their fingers at everyone else. It was a very eye-opening speech that he gave, actually.
Lopez Obrador actually had, before he won the election, he actually had the previous election stolen from him.
Yeah, he mentioned that. Yeah, he knows what it's like.
Right. So when they say, Trump's a conspiracy because he insists the election was stolen, guess what?
It was.
It was. So
we know it now. It's all right there in black and white, right on the Twitter stuff.
Yeah. So this is really something for the people listening to internalize, which is we actually have the power. If enough of us, what is called in a military phrase, pull rank. And when I say pull rank, I mean act like a leader, even if you don't have, the pinstripes on your arm. But act in the interests of humanity, act in the interests of next generations, because this is a glorious chance to break and bury the deep state forever. Okay? That's what the re-election of Trump to president under these conditions, where Trump said, hey, if I were president, there never would be a war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. If I were president, or if you appoint me to be the negotiator, I'll go in there and get an agreement in 24 hours. Okay?
Yeah.
And we actually had a chance to discuss this. My wife, Mindy Pechinuk, as a delegate at the Republican convention in Sacramento last weekend, actually had written a resolution which was X'd out, which was opposed by the California Republican establishment of rhinos. But there was a procedure in the rules that if the rules committee recommended against your resolutions committee recommended against your resolution, you could pull it out and demand a vote on it on the floor. And that's what happened last Sunday. She got to speak for this resolution of, stopping the war, getting Trump in there, and got an ovation from many of the 1,300 delegates there.
Wow.
And so an extra 10 or 15 minutes was taken in the discussion of this, because the arrogant leaders didn't even bother to print the resolution for people to read before they voted on it. And the delegates rebelled and said, we demand to read this before we vote on it. And then the Jessica Patterson, the chairman, said, it's on the website. Just go on the website. You'll see it there. So they went on the website on their phones, and it wasn't there. So they called her out as a liar, and she was proven to be a liar. So it took them about 10 minutes to get someone to put it in the website and then put it up on the screen for people to read. So we've done amazing work in bringing these kind of things, larouches, solutions, and how to get out of the mess, into the discussion. And that's what we're able to do, Terry.
Yeah. Well, we don't have 2 years
Yeah.
for the next election. So Biden needs to be thrown out, impeached, but that can take a little time. And then we'll end up with Kamala Harris. So, and I've got about a minute and a half before this thing turns off.
Yeah.
So how do we do it quick?
Well, first of all, we'll post this stuff. People should get a hold of their congressman and demand that the funding for Ukraine stop and the money be used to rebuild the infrastructure, the water, and take personal responsibility to get involved. That's the key. The involvement of the grassroots citizens with the idea of the solutions, because we do have an exciting future with fusion power, with the space program, et cetera, and we're on the verge of success. And that's the important.
You have a guest behind you.
Yes.
Your wife is behind.
I got another call we got to get on.
Yeah, okay. And I'm gonna have to go here too. So thank you very much, Gerald. This is Terry Allen, Real Progress News. And everyone have a good night. Things are going exciting and it looks great. Let's do another one in a couple of days.
We sure will, Terry. Thanks a lot,
Have
Terry.
a good night.
See ya.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.